beginning of January, I was thinking, wouldn't it be wonderful to videotape Ca The Yowes for Dr. McLaren, Dr. McLaren. Because years ago, he just retired 2 years ago, but years ago, he helped to organize a trip to his home Glen in Scotland. He helped to encourage us with his peace and the pronunciation, all those kinds of things. And so we want to do something special. Send it off to Hawaii, and then last week we hear that he passed away. So tonight we'd still like to sing the song. And I've asked Dr. Richard Fish if he'd come tell a story for us on Dr. McLaren.
Being a college professor, one of the things that we learned over the years, you can learn a lot in the class and in the laboratory, but there's a special kind of learning that takes place when you travel as a group with students. And over the years, I've had the privilege of traveling with three very special people. One is Timothy Shetler. And we've been all over Eastern Europe and Western Europe and sang to the prisoners, and I don't sing, but they sing to the prisoners in Fiji, going through the Panama Canal, singing on a cruise ship. A wonderful kind of experience. And the second person was Dan Gresham. Dan Gresham was a literature professor, and he got the idea that he wouldn't just teach Henry Thoreau in the classroom, but he'd get out there. And I got to travel with him on a canoe trip in the North Maine woods and on the Merrimack River. Just a terrific experience. And he started a course with the third person that Tim mentioned, Phil McLaren. And they used to do this course of the sea in literature. And Phil McLaren would do the biology part, and Dan Gresham would do the literature part. And they'd actually rent this big schooner, and the students were the crew. And they used to sail all over the Caribbean doing their course. And the very last time that they were scheduled to do it, Dan said that he couldn't go. He wasn't feeling well. And you knew Dan had to be feeling pretty poorly to turn down a trip like that. And we found out he had pancreatic cancer. And he ended up several months later dying just at the age of, I think he was just in his 40s, which seems young to a lot of us now as we get older. And Phil McLaren is the third one. And he did wonderful travel seminars all over the place. He took students to Scotland, out to the islands. He took students to Belize. He traveled to New Zealand, all over the place, and just a wonderful experience. And we would sometimes meet up with him on our trip. One trip that I was taking with the choir to Fiji, and Phil McLaren had his students in New Zealand. And it sounds crazy to you because we had to do things as frugally as possible. But it made sense to go from Fiji. We were trying to get to Hawaii for the next series of concerts. We actually flew south to Auckland, New Zealand, and then changed planes and headed up to Hawaii. And we met up with, we didn't plan on this at all, we met up with Phil and his group, and then we got a chance to spend time together in Hawaii. And another time, we were traveling to Central America, and we're going to Belize. And we met up with Phil and his students in Belize. And we had a bigger group. And so we had an old school bus to head out to the Mayan ruins. And Phil had his biology students in a small rental van. And Phil came up to me on the bus and said, Dick, I'd like to speak to the choir about what they're going to experience and about these Mayan ruins. Could you drive my van with the biology students? And I said, well, I could do it, Phil, but if I drive it, is there any insurance? And he said, no, but be very careful. There was a certain amount of calculated risk, and that was nothing to everyone swimming in this river that we saw crocodiles down. But the parents, they all survived. We got everybody back. There's a certain amount I mean, we enjoy doing it, but I'll tell you another story about Phil in just a minute. But the last trip we did, I did with Tim and the choir. We took off for 3 weeks in Scandinavia, different concerts. And at the intermission, I would tell stories, and the people in the churches and the places that the students were singing got a great kick out of the idea that Tim was traveling just 3 weeks after he married Joyce. And we would tell people that he chose to go on his honeymoon with me and 22 students. So sometimes this happens. Loretta and I spent our 10th wedding anniversary. I was in Milan, Italy with 12 students, and she was with her mother in Houston, Texas. So sometimes, these things, but we prefer to travel together when we can do it. The last commencement that I marched with Phil, he was having trouble walking, but he wanted to march. And so he came alongside me, and we started to walk down toward the front. He said, Dick, can I hold on to you? I'm having trouble standing up. And I said, sure, Phil. So he grabbed my arm, and we walked along, and he said, Dick, I love teaching, but I'm going to finally have to give it up. He said, I was teaching a course in class in human sexuality that I had done many, many times, and I couldn't remember the terms. So I understand that, Phil. The same experience, that's why I retired. Sometimes you can get away with it when you stop and ask the students to come up with the answer. It's the Socratic method. But if they can't come up with it, they'll have to fess up, and I just can't remember. But sometimes 20, 25 minutes later, it comes into your head. It's a retrieval problem. It's all there. It's a question of getting it out, and then we supply the answer. But we got about 100 feet from the rest of the people marching in because we were pretty slow. These two gray beards limping along together. And it was a great experience. And when you get to be that age, you're not embarrassed at all. You do the best you can, get down there. But one of the things, Phil has left a great heritage that his students that have traveled all over the world and experienced all of these things, they're physicians, they're nurses, they're physical therapists, they're college professors, they're people at home raising children with a whole different enriched experience of being in the world. And when I was thinking of Phil, I thought about a couple of students that are very close to me, about 22, 23 years ago. Our daughter Jennifer got to go on this cruise in the Caribbean. And there was a young man traveling along another student called Matthew Waterman. And several years later, they ended up getting married. She became a physical therapist, and Matt Waterman became a professor at ENC. And they've continued the tradition that Phil started over all of these years. They've taken students on the Nile in Egypt and to Costa Rica. Where is it?
Italy.
Italy, China, the Galapagos Islands. So we have these younger people that will continue on. It's a great heritage, and I think of Phil a lot. And hopefully some of you will get to go on some other trips. It's a wonderful experience. And Phil would love this. It's good to have all of these good memories from all the years. Thank you very much.